So let's get this meeting started. My name is Lauren Nye. I'm president of Kennesaw PRSSA. And like I said earlier, we're going to be talking about social media and PR. And you know what? I'm just going to jump right in and turn it over to our guest speaker. So why don't we go for questions? Let's just go in the order of Marissa and Sarah. And I'm just going to kick y'all off with please introduce yourselves. Tell us about your role, your background, and your take on social media and PR, how you got here.
Awesome. I can kick it off. Hey everyone. My name is Marissa. I am currently actually slight different job title from what was on the flyer. I recently transitioned roles at Focus Brand. So I now am the global head of organic social media influencers and partnerships at Focus Brands. And so for those of you who do not know what Focus Brands is, we are the parent company of 7 hopefully of your favorite food brands. So that's Moe's, McAllister's, Schlotzsky's, Auntie Anne's, Cinnabon, Carvel Ice Cream, and Jamba. So I oversee the social media team that leads organic social media, with obviously influencer work being included in that, as well as partnerships. We like to think of it as more of like partnerships, brand collabs that oftentimes are very social first, social forward in nature, could end up becoming larger brand activations. But a lot of times in practice, some of those opportunities really kind of first start or even the outreach is sparked through social interactions and conversations. So just previously to being in this role, I've been at Focus Brands for 6.5 years. I was overseeing both PR and social media for our specialty category brands. So all of those snack and dessert brands that I mentioned, I was leading PR and social for that. Prior to that, I was with an agency that handled all of the PR and promotions for the film studios. So Paramount Pictures was one of my main clients. I was there for about 5 years. And then prior to that, I was at Walt Disney World Resort leading PR and social media for both the entirety of the parks as well as the sports facility that they have there. So which is now ESPN Wide World of Sports. So that is a little bit about me and my kind of my quilt past of multiple different companies and experiences, but ultimately all leading up to really working towards integrated campaigns and opportunities that bring together PR and social media.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much, Marissa. I know a lot of ears perked up in the room, a lot of big names. So awesome. Well, Sarah, let's turn it over to you. How did you get started? What's your background and your current role?
Sure. Well, thanks for the opportunity to join you tonight. I'm really excited about this. My current role is actually Director of Communications for Grady College of Journalism and Mass Communication. I know that probably is very similar to the programs a lot of you are in. We have 4 majors. We have public relations, advertising, journalism, and what we call entertainment and media studies, which is kind of a film studies, and some entertainment and media theory classes. I have been here for about 10 years. I've been at UGA for about 12 of those years. And as Director of Public Relations, social media is a small part of what I do. I wish that it was bigger and I had more time. But I also do a lot of writing. I oversee our website. We do a lot of photography, videography, graphics. So just kind of that entire role. So again, I wish that social media, I wish we had a social media person dedicated specifically to that role, but alas, we do not. I have a colleague who works with me, and then we have 2 interns each semester. And part of their role is to help listen on social media, help with social media strategy, and then do some posting as well. So other than that, before UGA, I served for about 17 years doing marketing and membership services at some master planned golf communities. I was at the Georgia Club just outside of Athens here for about 10 years. And about 7 years prior to that, I was at Reynolds on Lake Oconee. And it was really my role at the Georgia Club that really first started introducing me to social media. And it was some interns that I was working with actually at the Georgia Club who said, "Oh, you really should get on Facebook. You really should get on Twitter." And that was kind of what launched my start. So I just kind of wanted to put that out there that interns have been a big part of my professional experience throughout my years in public relations, and they have just brought so much value and education to me as well. Prior to Reynolds, I did some work in an agency environment in Ohio, and I have a undergraduate degree from Miami of Ohio in Oxford. That degree was in public relations. Since then, I've gotten a master's in business from Georgia State, and I just earned a master's in emerging media from UGA from Grady College. So, yeah, that's a little bit about me.
No, that's awesome, Sarah, and I'm glad to hear you say, working with interns and whatnot, because I know a lot of us in here are currently interns or are looking for internships. So at some point in the conversation tonight, let's talk about what a social media internship looks like for sure.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
going with, the questions that you were sent in my little script, let's talk about some of the trends that you're seeing in 2023 on social media. So what's hot, what's not? Marissa, we'll start with you.
Oh my gosh. So the one thing that I love about in working in social media is that I love, but also makes working in social media a little bit frustrating, is that it is constantly changing. So it keeps you on your toes, but at the same time, it does make it a little bit difficult to be as thoughtfully planful as strategic as you would like to be, because you may plan content for 2 months out, but guess what? A platform has changed its algorithm and no longer still photos are being optimized, reels are being optimized, or vice versa. Talking about Instagram, constantly changing its algorithm. And then you have platforms like TikTok that there is no recipe for what works on TikTok. You can post 10 pieces of content, think 9 of them are stellar and one of them is meh. And that one that you thought was meh is the one that goes viral that gets a bunch of views, but you don't know how to replicate it. There is no replicating it. So I would say in general, trends are constantly changing. And so it's really important to be active within the platforms, know the platforms, pay attention to what is resonating. But on a larger sense, I would say, especially when you look at what brands can do to make sure they're standing out and performing and gathering consumer interest, is that authentic content. We saw a really big swing towards influencer content, and obviously brands starting to put more and more money in paid advertising and content on social platforms, which has almost had the opposite effect with consumers and what they gravitate to. So consumers are now starting to see through those advertising, see through some of that paid influencer content, and really resonating towards, it may be paid influencer content, but the content that truly feels authentic to that influencer. Same thing with brands, showing authentic moments. It's not necessarily the perfectly staged studio shot. It is the UGC style image. So it may not be user generated content. It may not be from a fan that went to a Moe's and took a photo of a delicious burrito, but it might look like it came from a fan. So having that imperfect, authentic style content that you would scroll through and think it came from a friend is really starting to be more prominent, and I think resonate more with fans on social than it has previously in the past. It has always been something that fans gravitate to, but I think now with just such a surge in paid advertising and paid influencer content, you're starting to see the authentic and real style come through and be something that people want to see more of.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And I just kind of want to do a quick poll in the room, like how many of you are really starting to see through like a lot of that paid influencer type stuff, and you're kind of like, oh, not again, a lot of nodding heads. Okay.
Yeah, and I mean, I think when you look at it too, you used to see it was very ad forward in the influencer content. And so now you're seeing, and before people would say, no, you can't do more than a 10 or a 15-second video. You're going to lose people. They watch the first couple of seconds and then they're gone. Well, with influencer content, in order to relay authenticity and have it feel like it's a part of that influencer's life, like, yes, you may see that it's an ad, but you're like, no, wait, but they actually like that brand or actually do use it. You're now seeing a minute and a half get ready with me series, and people are captivated and they're watching it because you're seeing them in their real life. So again, what was previously very ad forward and everyone said keep your videos short and tight, you're now seeing these longer pieces of content that are capturing people and making you realize that, like, it's all of a sudden it sucked you in and you're like, wait, how did I even, what was even the start of this video? But you're like, oh my gosh, now I need that. I need to go and buy it. So all tying into really being authentic.
Makes a lot of sense. All right, Sarah, what are some trends that you've been seeing?
Yeah, I totally agree with Marissa. And it's funny because, we on our social platforms, and I'm speaking especially about Instagram, but, we're really trying to build a sense of community, a sense of belonging among our students. And it's funny because we'll, spend, an hour or two, crafting this, kind of elaborate video, and, we're thinking that it's really, really good. And we'll put it up there. And sometimes they do great. Sometimes they don't do as well. But for instance, we had a post just a few weeks ago that was we went into a classroom and just took some pictures, and I really didn't expect it to do that well. I mean, it went off the charts, which, I think it's just kind of getting again to what Marissa is saying is, just students want to see, people want to see, consumers want to see just that authentic content and just kind of the day in the life of what's going on at the college. So, we really try to focus on what is doing well on Instagram and certainly LinkedIn. In terms of trends, I actually reached out to a few of our professors at Grady who teach social media too, just to kind of get some input as well. So I have to say that not all of these comments are mine. I need to share the credit. But short video is mandatory now, is one of the comments that we got from one of the professors. I think that that's pretty clear. AI is really, up and coming. Hopefully, I don't really see any future in the near future, I guess I should say, where AI is like totally writing content and generating content and that type of thing, but certainly creating audiences and generating interest and that type of thing. I mean, I think we definitely need to keep an eye on AI, and especially like the Chat GPT and all of that. I think that that's really coming up. I personally am really glad that Instagram is going back to some liking for the pictures. I know that for a while they were like totally on the reels. I love taking pictures. I like taking video too, but I really like taking pictures. So, getting back to some of the carousels and that type of thing is something that I personally am really excited about. I listen to a lot of podcasts, and one of the podcasts I was listening to just a few days ago was talking about how podcasts are really gravitating toward YouTube now, that it's not just audio, but also the interviews are getting a second life on video. So I'm anxious to see where that goes. And then something else I was reading about recently was social search. And this is something, I know that I'm bringing the average age up quite a bit on this phone conversation, but I don't really go on social to search things like vacations or that type of thing. But I think that that's something that is really becoming prevalent among students your age right now. So it's something that we definitely need to be aware of in terms of search engine optimization and keywords and that type of thing, just taking advantage of all of those search opportunities on social as well. So those are a few thoughts that I had.
Absolutely. No, thank y'all so much. So y'all were talking a lot about, user-generated content and, just creating your own content. To Sarah's point, you like taking pictures. So what would be your advice for someone who loves PR, loves social media, but isn't exactly the like most skilled at creating content, maybe doesn't feel confident enough to create those aesthetic pieces that they think are going to land with an audience. So what would be your tips and tricks for how to boost your skills for creating that kind of gravitating content?
I mean, yeah, I would say don't underestimate like the power of your phone. Like that there are so many apps out there that can polish up your images, that can help you edit quick videos. My team actively every day is using Canva. Like we have a full creative department that helps us execute like great videos and great stills and graphics. But when we're doing real-time stuff on the fly, or there's something that we just like, oh shoot, we didn't get that creative request into our team and we need a couple of slides for stories to post, we're going into Canva and we're creating it on our own. So don't underestimate some of those tools to really help you make something a little bit more polished. And also respect the fact that people in social audiences don't want necessarily the perfectly polished piece of content. It's okay for it to have a little bit of imperfection. It's okay for it to look real. So kind of just embrace the journey and practice. You know, we have fake accounts where we are just constantly like with test content, putting it up there. We're seeing what our feed looks like. We have, you know, it's locked down. Only certain people have access to it. So obviously talking specifically about Instagram, you can do the same with TikTok. Don't be afraid to just have something like that where you're taking different edits of photos, you're posting it, you're seeing what looks good, you're looking at it in feed, you're looking at it on the page, and just playing around with it to see what looks the best from an edit standpoint. So play around with it. Don't be afraid to leverage tools and just learn on your own. Honestly, that's the best way that you're going to be able to figure it out. Again, it doesn't take a perfectly polished camera or a videographer to be executing your work. Just start playing with it and eventually it's going to click.
That's great advice. Awesome. Thank you, Marissa. And Sarah, what tips and tricks do you have?
Yeah, I you know, echo what Marissa said. I mean, we use Canva a lot too. It's a great tool. It's something that you can get you know, a good quality product out nice and quickly. I think the things that I would advise is one, you know, just start. I mean, don't overthink it too much. I mean, sometimes the simplest posts, again, going back to that example where, you know, we spent 2 hours on a video that didn't do super great, but we, you know, put up 2 pictures of a classroom that, you know, took us a fraction of the time and it did great. So just don't overthink it too much and just find a place to start. You know, I sometimes am guilty of, you know, trying to, you know, let, you know, perfection be the enemy of progress. And, you know, that can, you know, sometimes come back to bite you. I mean, just getting started with a little baby step, you know, the more you do, the more comfortable you'll become. You know, the other thing is, you know, seek out content that you admire and try to figure out if you can unravel it or just even try to start with just a fraction of that. You know, I follow a woman named Katie Steckley. I think her title is like content creator or something. She has all these YouTube videos. She does a lot on Instagram. She has a podcast. And so I kind of, you know, look at what she's doing and see if I can, you know, learn from that. But I think, you know, just looking at what others are doing that you admire and trying to figure out how that can be applicable to your brand, I think is key.
I will also add one tag onto this. I think it's important to be able to create content. And this obviously depends on the evolution of the industry and where you end up in a career. But social media is starting to turn a corner where more and more companies, businesses are understanding that you can't have the one-man band anymore. You can't have a social media person that you expect to do community management, strategy, content creation, all of the above. And so as you start playing with it, you may understand and learn, wow, I really like doing content, and you want to go into more of a content creator role. You may feel like, okay, I know enough to be dangerous, and I can get a couple assets if I need to, but I really enjoy strategy, or I really enjoy community management, and that's the direction that you can take your career. So while it has been very slow evolution, and it still has a long way to go, there is becoming more understanding of the social media industry, and that there are multiple roles within a social media team. It should be a team that is getting the job done. So yes, you should absolutely understand how to create some content, but hopefully you're also able to find yourself in a position where that isn't solely on your shoulders, and you're able to kind of share that load with someone who truly is a content creator and can create the best work that will perform the best.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. Thank you both. Wow, that was pretty awesome. Cool. So in talking about, like your personal brand or creating accounts to play around with content creation, and just kind of measuring your skills. I know a lot of people tend to, or I'll say a lot of up and comers like us probably play around on our personal accounts to just try to see like what works, what doesn't. Maybe we can go viral. But within that, how do you feel is the best way to, or best practices to balance like personal social media content and building your brand so that, it's professional, but it's also playful and true to you? What are your best practices?
I would say it starts with you understanding what you want your personal brand to be. So taking the time to think through when someone goes to your account, what do you want them to see, feel, understand about you? You look at my personal Instagram page, it has a little bit of work stuff in there, but it's mostly, it's me, it's my personal space. You go to my LinkedIn, zero personal, it is all about business and what I do and support of my brands. So I think first, get an understanding of what do you want your personal brand to be. If it is a mix of both you personally and your work, you're having to find and strike that balance. The last thing you want to do is have a photo that is completely opposite of what you're doing from, more of like a business or, more work-oriented direction or career-oriented direction. So striking that balance once you understand what you want your personal brand to be is a good look. And don't be afraid to have multiple channels. We get focused on how many followers do you have? Well, yes, followers can matter, but you want the followers that care. So having 1,000 followers, but only 300 who truly care about the content that you're posting, that's not really going to be helpful. So if it means creating 2 different profiles, one that goes all in on what you're doing from a social space and one that is all you personal, having 300 followers on that business page that are engaged and care about the content you're producing is a lot more impactful than kind of spreading yourself thin and wide on one. So don't be afraid to create a separate account if that means being able to curate an audience and a community that cares more about that content.
That makes sense. Sarah, your best practices.
I think mine goes back to the thing that we first started talking about, and that's just being authentic. Like Marissa, my Instagram is almost all pictures of my kids and my friends, and LinkedIn is very professional. And I think that, for instance, I know that humor really plays well on social media. I'm not a naturally very funny person, I don't think. I mean, I feel like I'm a sincere person and, I'm a thoughtful person, but I'm just not funny. So I don't try to be funny on my social sites because that's not me. But, my personal brand, I mean, I love reading and I love photography. I consider pictures kind of my love language, if you will. So, having good quality pictures is important to me. It's not important to everybody, but just, identifying what's important to you and, trying to get those messages across, I think is important. When it comes to our Grady accounts, again, creating a sense of community, a sense of belonging, and sharing our points of pride, whether they're about our students, our faculty and staff. Those are, kind of the key messages that we're always trying to get across. So whatever avenue that we can use to get that across, just sharing the good word is what we're trying to do. So, I think it's just being authentic and showing your natural self and trying not to be something that you think others want, but is not, organic to you.
That's great advice. Thank you so much. So we've talked a lot about like personal stuff on social media and how to leverage personal skills, but let's talk about another aspect of social media related to PR. And let's talk about how social media can best be leveraged for crisis communication. So what are some ways that you feel social media really helps or hurts crisis communication?
Yeah, gosh, when you look at crisis, again, there are so many different, I guess you can say, areas of crisis that social can touch. For me and my brands, I guess you can call it more issues management versus crisis. But I mean, you guys as consumers, if you go and you have a terrible experience at a restaurant, what are you doing? Chances are you're going online and you're complaining about it. You're not going to my website and finding the contact us form and filling something out. You're going to social and you're talking about it. You're writing a terrible review somewhere saying, I can't believe X, Y, and Z happened when I went to McAllister's. And so for us, we sometimes are on social the front lines of crisis or issues management. Things happen and get shared out on social from news outlets before it actually hits the news as well. So if and these are all examples of things that have happened, a SUV drives through the front of a Moe's restaurant, well, guess what? People are instantly like taking photos of it, or the news station is reporting about it. And so we're also the inbound source to our PR and crisis team to say, hey, this just happened at this Moe's, and they start going in to figure out, okay, what information can we get, talking with our operations team. So not only are we sometimes the ones that are catching issues and crisis management first, but then we're also kind of the first response. And so crisis management on social is a very delicate nature, because more often than not, it's being handled in the public space versus one-to-one with the person that has the issue. So everyone is able to see and monitor how you respond. So typically our first step is to always move it into, if possible, a private DM. So that way we're only talking one-to-one to that person and we're not having to deal with all of the outside noise. If you're looking at some bigger issues that are going on, we typically have leveraged social media as more of a communications vehicle that can reiterate our communications that's already being shared in a larger media space. So we typically don't have social media as a main form of making an announcement. It's typically reiterating what we've already shared with media or is posted on our website. And we keep things one-to-one. The last thing you want, that things can be taken very, taken in the wrong manner, taken and catch fire on social. And now you're having to handle, you just created a crisis for yourself, right? Your management of the crisis has now led to another crisis that you're having to handle. So it can be a very powerful tool in amplifying your response or your management of a crisis. But it is tricky. You have to be careful, because there are a lot of keyboard warriors out there that like to be able to hide behind a profile image and that's just the nature of social media. You got to take and filter out the bad with the good. So you just have to proceed with caution. Every single crisis and issue is going to be different. And so you have to approach each of them differently and uniquely. It can be a powerful tool to amplify your message, but you also have to tread a little cautiously.
Absolutely. Awesome. Sarah, how about you? What's your take on social media and crisis communication?
Yeah, I actually have 3 points to talk about a little bit with this. I think the first is to, speak with a clear, consistent voice and one voice. So making sure that, I mean, obviously you can't control what others are saying, but you need to make sure that all of your constituents and everything are on board with the message that you're sending out on social. Like Marissa, we communicate serious information in other ways and not on social. We may, try to back it up on social. We don't have a lot of comments coming in. I mean, our comments are like, why are we dressing in business casual instead of caps and gowns for our convocation ceremony? So, we can address some of that. They're not huge crises, but just, speaking with one clear, consistent voice. I think listening is really important. I know we're going to talk about Twitter in a few minutes, but, I use TweetDeck a lot, and Marissa probably has some social media listening. Unfortunately, we don't have any of those. We kind of set up our own on TweetDeck. But, being able to listen to what others are saying when they tag you, but also people who may not tag you, but are talking about the subjects that are important to you. I mean, we have a whole column of peer institutions, and we're always trying to figure out how they're dealing with issues in higher education management and that type of thing. So it's just kind of watching what others are doing as well. And then the final thing is just making sure that you're talking with your key stakeholders and your internal audiences first, because they don't really want to hear about major changes on social media. They want to hear first from you, and that will help direct what their responses are and that type of thing.
Absolutely. Well, Sarah, I'm glad you brought up Twitter because I am skipping around between some of these questions. So yeah, let's go ahead and talk about Twitter. Where do you see Twitter in the future? Will it become obsolete? Will it grow into something we've never seen Twitter grow into before? What are your thoughts?
This is like every week there's like, we're having to put out a new POV to our executive leadership team on what's going on with Twitter. Net, there's been a lot of conversations about how Twitter is going to change, and we have yet to see any of those kind of come to fruition in a way that's impacting how we use the tool. Twitter is incredibly impactful for us for our community management. That's where we do a lot of our engagement with our fans and followers. Like, we are constantly engaging with our community day in and day out, not just with people who are frequenting our brands, but people who just like to follow our brands because we've made them into more of a lifestyle brand versus just a food brand. And then there is the thing of brand Twitter, where brands are chatting with other brands and engaging with each other. Cinnabon is in a relationship with Slim Jim, guys. Like, Twitter's crazy. So it's an area where we can have a lot of fun and really bring our brand tone of voice to life and engage one-to-one with our fans. I personally don't see anything drastically changing with the way Twitter is used. It is something that we are constantly watching. We, as of right now, our POV is we're not going to be paying for any blue checks, any access within the platform. We're going to use it as we have been using it. So it is something that we are, from a crisis and issues management, watching, because any step that you take can be criticized as a brand. And so we'll continue to use the tool as it allows us to engage with our communities. But we are, discussing internally, if Twitter were to cease or we see a drastic drop in our engagement, how are we starting to create some of that conversation in one-to-one communities on other platforms if we start to not be able to do that on Twitter? So that's the biggest piece, is that we're just kind of keeping our options open and our eyes open as to if this area that allows us to develop a really great community somehow becomes impacted, how do we do that with the other platforms that we have today, namely TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook? So it's all a wait and see and planning for potential contingencies, but that's about it.
Yeah, no, that's really insightful, Marissa. And also too, I have to comment. So the Cinnabon and Slim Jim relationship, I've got to say, this is not the first time I've heard, and I don't think this is necessarily the first time for a lot of you in this room, because flashback to February, we invited Lindy Simmons, who is a UGA grad. I'm sure you know Marissa, Lindy. And Lindy was talking all about the Cinnabon and Slim Jim relationship. So for those of you who are at district conference, you are well up to speed on that. So, gosh.
Yeah, I feel like I'm out of that circle. I'm not sure what that relationship is, but it sounds fun.
No, it's definitely yes, check it out. But Sarah, let's talk about, what you think about Twitter.
Well, Twitter remains a very important audience for us. It's our biggest following group, and being the College of Journalism, there are a lot of journalism and media outlets on Twitter that are important to us. So we have not really changed anything, but we are very concerned about the direction it's going. I think as long as Elon Musk is in control, I think it's very worrisome. I think that, the labels that he is putting on, media entities like NPR and BBC and that type of thing is huge. But I just heard on the radio coming home today, and I haven't had a chance to verify this, but I think NPR is scaling back their posts on Twitter now just until they can resolve that naming issue. But it's really unfortunate to see, because I do think it's a great platform. It's certainly not our only platform. And even though it's our largest audience, it's not our best engaged platform. I would say that would be Instagram. But still, just the kind of the caustic attitude that they're having towards journalism is a concern, and I really hope that ship rights itself, but I'm not super optimistic if Elon Musk continues directing that company.
Yeah, no, I can definitely see how that would be worrisome, especially, with the controversy going on between Twitter and journalists and those kinds of publications. And I guess, thinking out loud here from a PR standpoint, pitching to media, you want the journalist to say, hey, look at this article I wrote about, my client, that they post on Twitter to share with their network. So I can see how that's all very messy. But at this point, so I know we didn't get to all the questions, but I really want to open it up to the floor, because I know a lot of people in here are just dying to ask burning questions about social media, especially just since it's so hot. And I mean, all of us in here are Gen Z. I'm looking at yes, okay, all of us are Gen Z. So I mean, social media, we've pretty much grown up with it. So I'm going to go ahead and open it up to the floor, and y'all are welcome to come up and ask questions to Marissa and Sarah. So whoever wants to come up first. Are you kidding me? I just told y'all. I was like, you guys are so excited to ask your questions. Okay, let's do Isabel Kamen. Okay. All right, I'm sending Isabel your way.
Hi, guys. So this question's kind of directed at Marissa for something she said earlier. I know Instagram recently changed its guidelines to the blue check marks, and that you said you weren't going to pay for it. Do you ever worry about brands, or not brands, but people impersonating your brand and commenting really rude things back to customers who do have complaints on social media?
Yeah, I mean, it's something that we keep an eye out on. Again, Twitter is a it's been going a little crazy, so we're keeping our eye on it. Fortunately, we're in a space that isn't too serious to where impersonations would, necessarily go rogue or really damage the business. I think a comparison that I can share is that, so all of our brands, we are franchise organizations, which means individual owners and operators pay a fee to then operate our locations. We as a company don't operate them. We give them the tools and the guidelines to do it, but it's up to that individual entrepreneur to run that location. So those are their employees. They're executing the day-to-day. There will be I'm making this up, Cinnabon at Cumberland Twitter page that might be talking about everything that's going on at Cinnabon Cumberland. All of these locations are having Instagram pages or Facebook location pages or even Twitter pages where they may not be speaking in our voice, speaking in our tone, being the best representation of our brand. And that is something that we actively monitor. There are ones when, for example, like the Barbie meme going viral this past week. Technically, from a legal standpoint, as a brand, you can't use another brand's IP in order to benefit your business, and partaking in something as simple as a meme can be seen. They can come after you with a cease and desist and say, you got to take that down. So we as a brand did not participate, but some of our franchise locations participated. And so even our Cinnabon UK, we had to reach out to that franchisee and say, you need to take that down. We may get a cease and desist. That is not okay for us to kind of be stepping into that territory. So less about impersonations, but within our specific area of work, there are other people that can technically act or are representations of our brand that we have to regularly monitor in order to kind of maintain our brand reputation.
Gotcha. That makes sense. Thank you.
Hey, how's it going? So, I have a question. So, I'm planning on rebranding my own Instagram. Well, not my main Instagram, just like a side account, because I'm shooting for my personal training license at the end of the year. But since personal training falls along like physical and mental health, and then like also like say social media is aimed to like kind of get you glued and stayed on like the social media platform. Do you have any tips or tricks to like kind of limit your time when using like Instagram, and then also just like branching out your own like I guess like yeah, your own brand page?
I would say that, if you're shooting to become a known expert in that area, you need to identify some areas that you can excel and share that content. I think as much as you can share free content to get people interested in signing up with you for personal training and that type of thing, you should do that. I would also say, if you can, establish kind of a brand identity in terms of the formal, it doesn't necessarily need to be a logo, but colors and hashtags and that type of thing. I think that could go far in solidifying what you're trying to do. But is that kind of getting at what you're asking?
Yes, because say like I'm planning on getting the certification over the summer, and then maybe like getting like 3 people to do like a testimony after like working with them like for 2 to 3 weeks. But yeah, I guess like I always find myself really like stuck on Instagram looking for like that one perfect like combination to help like I guess yeah, make a perfect Instagram post or anything. But I really do like how you said like it's better to be kind of imperfect and rather than like being perfect on social media because it's more authentic. But yeah, that kind of answered my question.
Yeah, and if you're worried about, like you said, kind of striking that balance between like you want to talk about and be about wellness as a whole, and how social media you may feel a little conflict between the two, make sure your content speaks to that. It is totally acceptable to address like the elephant in the room and speak to how it's okay to find that balance. We have that struggle with Cinnabon. Cinnabon is a nearly 1,000 calorie delicious treat that you have. But we also know that in the spirit of mental wellness and taking that break and giving yourself a moment of pleasure and enjoyment, if you balance it, we're not saying eat a cinnamon roll every single day, but guess what? You can treat yourself. You can give yourself that little moment. You don't have to eat all of it. You know, there's ways to, I think, kind of speak to both sides of it. You just kind of have to find your little niche and figure out how you can present content that addresses the need to find balance. And that when people are looking for wellness or the topics that you're speaking to, they know they can come to your page and find it. And that you're also kind of a safe space. A lot of people are now starting to, you know, mental health, I get on social media, but I'm only following these accounts that keep me in the right headspace. So I think you can find an opportunity to curate your content that gets people to see your space as a safe space for them.
Thank you.
Yeah. And I was going to add one more thing too, and that is just, you know, in terms of striking that balance, I think testimonials are great. I think whenever you can have a third party person talk either on video or just even like a quote slide about your services and, you know, what a great person you are, I think that that's wonderful. But I also think that people like to, you know, hear from you and see your face and hear your ideas. So don't be scared to get on there and do some videos on your own and talk about, you know, your philosophy and personal training and health and that type of thing. I think there's a good way to do a balance of both of those and be effective.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Hello.
Hi.
This is kind of building off of Cayman's question, but finding your personal brand is really hard. So there's food, there's wellness, there's a bunch of different stuff. What are some tips to zoning in on the one thing you want to talk about? And what are other major tips to just digital media marketing in general?
I mean, I feel like, I don't know if maybe this is like a renewed focus within kind of establishing yourself that's shared, but like, I don't know if this is the right answer, but I don't have a personal brand. I'm like, am I missing something? Do I need to go and create a personal brand? But you know, that's something that like, I just, that's never kind of been a focus for me. I think the bigger focus has always been that, again, going back to the theme of authentically myself, that I am authentically who I am. No matter where you see me, you may see different shades of me, but you will always authentically see me. And no matter where I show up, I know it's appropriate for anybody who may stumble upon it, whether it is my boss, my family, a friend. You will see all shades of my life, but I've also made sure that what I'm sharing is appropriate for any scene. So on the personal branding part, yeah, I again, authentically me, and I with a lens of, do I want my boss to see this? And is that okay? I would definitely say when I was probably your all's age coming out of college, that was like constantly top of mind for me of what am I posting? But I think if you go into it with that approach, you end up just naturally having that constant always on filter, and you don't have to think about that anymore. That just becomes the type of content that you create and you put out there. So be authentically you, and just know that what goes in social lives on forever.
Yeah, and to that point, I was going to relay a story that happened just about 2 years ago. We were interviewing some students for internships at Grady College, and I always like to, you know, go onto their social media accounts, and you always hear that you need to clean them up before you interview and everything. And one of the candidates that we were really impressed with, I went onto her Twitter account, and she had in like her bio it was just kind of a reference that I didn't understand. And basically, and I can't remember exactly what it was, so I don't want to quote it, but it was something, having to do with the female body. And I'm like, oh, I don't know if that's the best thing. I just don't get it. And anyway, we decided to go with another candidate. We turned her down, and she reached out to me and she said, I, would appreciate any constructive feedback for next time. And I said, well, we were, you were a great candidate, but, I went under your Twitter account and this was just kind of an odd reference. And she's like, oh, that's from, I think it was from the Amazing Mrs. Marvel. I don't have that show. What is the name of the show? The Amazing Mrs. Marvel, is that it? Anyway, it was a reference to a TV show that I didn't watch, and so I didn't get it. And she's like, yeah, I can see how that, taken out of context might have seemed a little weird. So, it just goes to show you that even when you think that, a lot of people are getting the cultural references, not everybody may, and especially if they're in a different generation like I am than you guys, just be careful. But, again, I think to Marissa's point, I think that, you're an aggregate, you're not like one focus, you're not just a book reader or just a fitness expert or whatever, but you're kind of a combination of a lot of different things. So I think just being true to who you are and the different parts that you're passionate about, I think is probably the direction that you need to consider.
Thank you.
Hey, how are y'all doing?
Hello.
Oh, sorry, I couldn't hear y'all. So my question, so like I tend to be a very big perfectionist when it comes to like social media at work and all of that. And I find that a lot of the time creating the content takes a lot longer, obviously, because it's all about like on Canva about the spacing and the grouping and all that type of stuff. Um, so I guess like, do you guys have any tips for kind of like cutting back time when it comes to like creating Canva? Because obviously like there's times where you don't have enough time to spend 30 minutes rearranging and grouping and all that. So I guess I don't know if y'all had any advice regarding that. So
I mean, I'll say one, it takes a lot of time to make content. Like, I don't think anyone is out here spending 2 minutes on a piece of content and letting it fly. Like there will be time investment in creating content. That is a very, very real piece to the puzzle. But that being said, you also got to cut the cord and let it fly. The beautiful thing about social, it's here and it's gone. Like there is, it may live in the feed, but in the overarching like space of social media, it is here and it is gone. There is nothing wrong with letting something go and seeing how it does. I don't think anyone's going to be judging you or judging a piece of content based on your font spacing. Focus on, we create, when we look at our brands, we have content pillars. So we have, for one of our brands, it may be thirst is a content pillar. Community is another one that showcases our guests enjoying our food. Crave may be another one that's like super ooey gooey delicious food that's food forward. So I think if you establish your content pillars and you determine what important pieces need to shine through in each of those pillar contents, as long as you focus on that and that is coming through, you're good. So we have, our brand guidelines that you have to abide by. We have our certain colors, we have our certain fonts, we have our guardrails on what is a craveable photo, what is not, like what is craveable, but what is messy and gross. Like we have our guardrails of what our content must be. And as long as we adhere to our guardrails that show that this content is accurately expressing our brand, you're good. Nothing will ever be perfect. You will always find something that you can tweak. You can A/B test, and if it's that bad, you can delete it. we constantly say we're not brain surgeons. We're working in social media. Like, this is fun stuff. So test it out, let it go, know when to cut the cord, but it's also helpful to kind of have your guardrails and your imperatives of your content has to meet X. And as long as I think you have that, you're good to go.
Yeah, and I agree. I don't mean to sound flippant or careless, but again, I think, don't let perfection get in the way of progress and good enough. I mean, for instance, today I was designing a little social media graphic and I went back like 4 times to correct it. And I'm like, I just spent like 20 extra minutes when I really should have been doing something else. And I was kind of mad at myself, but just as long as it doesn't have any typographical errors or, you're following the content pillars that, like Marissa has and that type of thing, just let it go.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Sure. Good luck.
Alrighty, so I hope y'all enjoy getting to hear a little bit of what was on our minds at Kennesaw PRSSA. And seriously, thank you, Marissa and Sarah, so much for your candid responses. Y'all are just fantastic, and just thank you for blessing us with this wisdom. So at this time, it is 7 o'clock on the dot, but we usually do love to get a picture with our guest speakers. So if y'all are available to stay just a couple more minutes, I would like to invite everyone to come to the front and let's do the, how it goes, the sorority squat in front of the screen. So
Great. All right. While everyone is gathering, I was just going to share, I kind of put together just a little curated list of resources that I like to go to when I have questions about social media or, to examine trends and that type of thing. I'm going to put the link in the chat. And if you'll just share it with everyone, Lauren. Again, these are personal sources. I'm sure you're familiar with some of them, but things that help get me through. So anyway, hopefully it will be helpful.
Yeah, you got it. I'd be happy to do that. Thank you for gathering that list for us, Sarah. That's so helpful. Thank you. Alrighty. So, yeah, you guys know the drill. Squeeze more. Yep. Okay. So I'm going to go camera off here. And how this works is your faces are on a screen and we gather in front of the screen. So you'll see it on the back end on our social. But I'm going to go camera off here. You'll hear 3, 2, 1, Kennesaw PRSSA, and then I'll come back on.
Awesome.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think I can do that. Let's see. Yeah. Oh. Can you do that? Let's see. Cannot move a video. Oh, she's still pinned. Okay, wait, hold on. Oh, look at that. Thank you, Christian. Okay.
Awesome. Hey. Y'all. All right, you know how it goes. 1, 2, 3, PRSSA. 9.
Passionate about social. All right, I'm back. All righty. Well, Marissa, Sarah, thank you so much. And again, Sarah, I will absolutely share those resources with everyone at Kennesaw PRSSA, as well as to the members who couldn't make it tonight. And just thank y'all so much for joining us. This has been a great conversation, and we're just so happy to have had y'all.
Okay, well, we appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, great chatting with you guys.
Absolutely. Well, thank y'all so much. Have a great rest of your evening.
You too.
Good luck.
Bye,
You
everyone.
too. Bye.
Bye.